The billionaire CEO waited every evening at the parking lot, but the shy black janitor never saw his love. Rain pounds on the roof of a black SUV parked in an empty Chicago lot. Inside, billionaire CEO James Darden grips the steering wheel, eyes locked on a woman pushing a cleaning cart through the downpour. Eve Carter, the janitor he's watched every night for months, never speaking, never seen. Tonight, something's different. He steps out into the rain. His shoes splash through puddles as he walks toward her. Then, a loud pop. A tire bursts. Eve spins around, startled, eyes wide. Their gazes lock for the first time, and time itself seems to stop. But what could drive a billionaire to wait in the dark for someone who doesn't even know his name? Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories, and tell us, where are you watching this from? Now let's proceed. The hum of the city fades once you leave downtown. Out here, in the long stretch of asphalt behind Darden Group's headquarters, the world feels emptied. The skyline glows in the distance like a memory of somewhere he used to belong. James Darden sits behind the wheel of his black SUV, the dashboard lights soft against his face. He's been here every night this week. Same hour, same space, same quiet. The gate guard doesn't ask questions anymore. He just nods when the boss drives in and disappears into the dark corner of the lot, engine idling. At 8:15, the same routine begins. The janitor's cart squeaks across the wet concrete. The woman pushing it doesn't look up. Her name tag reads Eve Carter, though James only learned that because he saw her badge flash once under the overhead light. She moves like someone used to being ignored. No rush. No hesitation. Just the rhythm of work. James watches her from behind the tinted glass, his hand resting on the steering wheel, thumb pressing against the smooth leather until it leaves a mark. Every night, he tells himself it's the last time. Every night, he comes back. His assistant, Miles, noticed the pattern first. "You working late again, sir?" he asked 3 nights ago, halfway through filing quarterly reports. James didn't answer. He just said he needed air. Now, as the clock ticks past 8:20, Eve pauses by the far light post, wringing out her mop. Rain has started again, thin at first, then heavier. She pulls her hood tighter, shoulders hunched, and keeps going. James rolls the window down an inch. The sound of rain fills the car, clean, steady, and grounding. It's the only thing that sounds real to him anymore. His days are full of voices, analysts, partners, and shareholders. They talk about numbers, expansion, and acquisitions. Every word adds weight. He signs documents he barely reads, sits in rooms full of people who speak like machines. Somewhere along the line, the noise turned into silence. And silence, in time, became unbearable. That's when he started driving. Late nights. Empty roads. He didn't know where to go until he saw her. It was Tuesday, 2 weeks ago. He'd pulled into the lot out of habit, needing a few minutes to breathe before heading home. Then he saw her under the rain, carrying a mop bucket that was almost as big as she was. Something about the calmness in her face, not tiredness, but peace, stopped him. She didn't see him. She never has. But he's been coming back ever since. Tonight, though, something feels off. A security truck passes through the lot, headlights sweeping across the SUV. James lowers his head slightly, as if hiding. He's not sure why. He's done nothing wrong. Yet he feels caught, like someone standing too close to a memory they can't explain. At 8:27, the passenger door opens. Miles slides in, holding a folder. "You missed dinner with the board," he says quietly. "They asked where you went." James keeps his eyes on Eve. "Tell them I had other business." Miles follows his gaze. "You mean her?" James doesn't answer. Miles shifts uncomfortably, trying to read his boss's face. "You're not planning something, are you?" "She's staff, sir. Custodial." "I know who she is," James says. His voice is calm, but sharp enough to close the conversation. Miles exhales. "Okay, just checking." When he leaves, James stays. He waits until Eve finishes and pushes her cart back through the side door. The gate closes behind her with a soft clang. Then he drives off, headlights cutting through the rain. Up in his penthouse, the city stretches below like a grid of artificial stars. The walls are clean, the rooms large, but everything feels too quiet. He sits at the dining table built for 10 and eats alone, the silverware clinking against empty air. The photo of his late wife still sits on the mantel. Her smile has faded under the glass. He doesn't talk about her. Not to friends. Not to family. There aren't many left to tell anyway. The crash happened 7 years ago, on a night much like this. Since then, he's filled the silence with work until there was nothing left but routine. And now, for reasons he can't explain, watching a woman mop floors gives him a sense of stillness he can't find anywhere else. Across town, Eve locks the door to her small apartment in Bronzeville. The walls are covered in peeling paint, but the warmth inside feels earned. Her nephew, Malik, sits at the kitchen table, hoodie up, scrolling through his phone. Books spread open but untouched. "You been home long?" she asks. He shrugs. "Couple of hours." "Homework done." She gives him a look that says she doesn't believe it. He grins, small but guilty. Eve shakes her head. "You can fool your teachers, not me." He laughs. It's short, tired laughter, but it breaks the heaviness in the room. Eve's been raising him since her sister passed 3 years ago. Malik was 12 then, quiet, withdrawn. Now he's 15, restless, trying to find himself in a neighborhood that swallows boys like him whole. Eve works nights so he can stay in school, but the distance between them grows a little each week. At midnight, she lies awake listening to the wind against the window. Somewhere out there, she thinks, people sleep in penthouses, not worrying about the next bill. But she doesn't envy them. She just wants Malik to have choices. She's learned not to dream beyond that. The next evening, James's car rolls into the same spot. The guard nods again. The clock reads 8:14. He feels the tension in his chest ease, not peace exactly, but something close to purpose. Through the mist, Eve appears again, mopping the far end of the walkway. She pauses for a moment, checking her phone, then keeps moving. James watches, memorizing the rhythm of her steps, the way she hums softly to herself when she thinks no one's around. Miles's words echo in his head. "She's staff, sir." He knows how it looks, strange, even obsessive. But it isn't about her in that way, not yet. It's about quiet. About remembering that the world can still hold people untouched by ambition or greed. He tells himself that's all it is. Still, he doesn't tell anyone where he goes at night. One Thursday, the weather turns. A cold front rolls in, scattering trash across the lot. The janitorial crew finishes early. Eve comes out carrying her bag, shoulders hunched against the wind. She glances around. The lot's nearly empty. Only James's SUV remains, lights dim. She stops for a second, uneasy, sensing eyes on her. But when the engine starts and the SUV rolls slowly past, she looks away, pulling her coat tighter. James drives out the gate without a word. That night, he lies awake, realizing he's started to depend on these moments. He knows it's wrong, or at least strange. But something in him resists stopping. The next morning, Miles corners him in the elevator. "People are talking," he says. "Security noticed your car logs. Every night, same time, same place." James doesn't respond. "You know what rumors can do," Miles adds. Especially with investors. James steps out on the top floor. Then stop them. He spends the day buried in meetings, face unreadable, voice controlled. But the silence under his tone feels heavier. When 8 o'clock hits, he checks his watch. By 8:10, he's back in the car. The guard doesn't even look up this time. Rain starts again, thin and cold. He leans back, watching the building's back door. Eve steps out, dragging her cart across the puddles, her reflection breaking apart under the headlights. For a brief second, she glances toward the SUV, not directly, but enough to make him freeze. Then she looks away and keeps walking. Inside the car, his phone buzzes. A message from Miles. You can't keep doing this. Someone will notice. James deletes it without replying. He doesn't move until Eve's gone. That night, across town, Malik sneaks out. Eve doesn't know it yet, won't until the phone call comes hours later. But at that same moment, back in the lot, James looks at the empty walkway where Eve had stood just minutes before and feels something shift. The silence that once calmed him now feels like a warning. He doesn't know it yet, but the night he decides to step out of the car will be the night everything changes. The rain starts again, harder this time. The lot goes quiet except for the faint buzz of a security camera, turning slowly, catching his car in its lens. And somewhere inside the building, a pair of eyes is watching him too. The rain that week didn't stop. It pounds against the glass towers until the skyline looks like it's melting. Streetlights flicker, buses crawl through deep puddles, and the parking lot where James always sits turns into a pool of reflected light. At 8:15, his SUV is there again. The wipers move slowly, each pass clearing a glimpse of the world outside. Dark asphalt, empty loading docks, the glow of the janitor's entrance. He waits for her. He doesn't tell himself why anymore. Tonight, Eve is later than usual. The minutes drag. 8:17. 8:20. 8:23. The door finally opens, and she steps out, wearing an old raincoat too thin for this weather. She pulls her hood up and moves fast, pushing her cart under the weak glow of the overhead lamps. James exhales. He hadn't realized he was holding his breath. Then, a sharp click. The dashboard lights fade. The engine dies. The rain keeps falling, but everything else goes quiet. He tries the ignition. Nothing. The car's systems blink off one by one. He taps the steering wheel, frustrated. Not tonight. Of all nights. He gets out. The rain hits him cold and fast, seeping through his shirt. Steam rises from the hood as he lifts it, pretending he knows what to look for. He doesn't. Eve notices him from across the lot. For a moment, she hesitates, unsure if she should approach. Then, without thinking, she starts walking toward him. "Need help?" she calls out, raising her voice over the rain. James looks up, caught off guard. It's the first time she's spoken directly to him. Up close, her voice sounds warmer than he imagined, steady, not soft. "I think the battery's dead," he says, brushing rain from his face. She glances at the luxury SUV, then at him. Doesn't seem like the kind of car that dies easily. He almost smiles. Guess money doesn't fix everything. She sets her cart aside and looks under the hood beside him. "I don't know much about cars, but you tried the lights?" He nods. Everything went out at once. They stand there in silence, the rain drumming harder. She looks at him again, no recognition, no fear. Just another person trying to help. That's what throws him most. Everyone else in his world treats him like a symbol, not a man. But she's just looking at him, waiting for an answer. "I already called roadside assistance," he says. "They'll be a while." "Then you're stuck," she says simply. He nods. Come wait by the door, she offers. At least you'll be dry. He follows her to the small awning near the loading bay. The sound of rain on metal fills the air. She leans against the wall, arms crossed. You work up there, right? She asks, tilting her head toward the building. I own it, he says, almost as a reflex, then regrets how it sounds. Eve laughs softly. Guess that explains the car. He studies her face. She doesn't seem impressed or intimidated. Just curious. What about you? He asks. Night crew, she says. We keep the place standing while everyone else sleeps. There's no bitterness in her tone, just truth. For a moment, they listen to the rain. Then she says, You come here often. You think nobody notices. He hesitates. I just like the quiet. She says. Most people who like quiet aren't sitting in the same spot every night. He gives a faint smile. You always this direct? Only when I'm too tired to care, she says, smirking. A small spark of something passes between them, not attraction exactly, but recognition. Two people who've been alone too long, suddenly speaking the same unspoken language. The tow truck takes 40 minutes. In that time, they talk about nothing and everything. City noise, long shifts, bad coffee. Eve mentions her nephew Malik, says he's bright but restless. He's trying to find his way. I just hope he doesn't find it in the wrong place. James nods. Kids grow fast. Sometimes too fast. She glances at him. You got any? He shakes his head. No. I had a wife. She passed. I'm sorry, she says quietly. He nods again. A long time ago. The tow truck finally arrives, flashing lights cutting through the rain. As the mechanic works, Eve gathers her things. Well, guess you'll survive the night after all. Thanks for the company, he says. She smiles faintly. You don't look like someone who gets much of that. He wants to say something back, something real, but the words don't come. As she walks away, he watches her go until she disappears into the rain. That night, he doesn't sleep. He keeps replaying the sound of her voice, the way she looked at him like he was just another man standing in the rain. The next morning, Miles drops by his office. You look like hell, he says. Didn't sleep. Miles drops a file on the desk. You've got 3 interviews this week and a board dinner Thursday. James barely hears him. His eyes drift to the window, where the rain has started again. Miles notices. You're not going down there again, are you? James doesn't answer. Miles sighs. You're the CEO of a $14 billion company. Sitting in a parking lot every night isn't exactly good optics. James looks at him. Neither is dying slowly in an office chair. By 8 that night, he's back in the lot. Not because of habit, but because of hope. He tells himself he's not waiting for her, just for the quiet. But every time the door opens, his pulse jumps. At 8:26, she steps out again. He catches the faint shape of her through the rain. She doesn't notice him this time. She's humming to herself, pushing her cart, lost in thought. For the first time in years, James smiles without realizing it. 2 days later, she finds a small paper bag by her locker. Inside is a thermos and a note, for the cold nights. Jay. She looks around, confused. Her supervisor walks in, sees the bag, and raises an eyebrow. Who's Jay? Eve shrugs. No idea. But she knows. That night, she brings the thermos with her. When she passes the parking lot, she doesn't look at his car, but she slows down. He sees her. Doesn't move. Just watches. This continues for days, glances, half smiles, passing moments that mean nothing to anyone else. But to them, it's enough to start something neither planned. Until one evening, Malik shows up outside her building, bruised and silent. She rushes to him. "What happened?" "Nothing," he says. "It's fine." "It's not fine," she says, checking his arm. "Who did this?" He looks away. "It's just some guys. I'll handle it." She knows he won't. The next day, she's distracted at work, moving more slowly, staring off. James notices from the lot. He doesn't know what's wrong, only that her usual calm is gone. After her shift, she walks out looking exhausted. He almost gets out of the car, but stops himself. Not tonight. He tells himself he has no right to interfere. But that night, at 2 a.m., he's still awake, pacing his penthouse. He picks up his phone, hesitates, and then calls someone in legal. "Set up a fund," he says. "Anonymous. An education grant for a student named Malik Carter. Do it quietly." He doesn't say why. He doesn't have to. 2 days later, Eve gets a letter. Malik's school is offering him a full scholarship through a private donor program. She can't believe it. She reads it twice, then 3 times. Malik laughs. Maybe luck's finally on our side. But she knows better. That night, she walks past the parking lot, eyes narrowing at the dark SUV. She doesn't stop. James watches her go. The rain begins again, slow, cold, endless. Something between them has changed, though neither will admit it yet. And as the clock strikes 8:15, somewhere in the shadows behind the maintenance shed, a second car engine hums quietly, watching him, the watcher. The next morning, Eve walks into Darden Tower like she always does, head down, eyes on the floor, badge clipped to her faded uniform. But something feels off. Security guards glance her way, whispering under their breath. A few employees stop talking the moment she passes. It's subtle, but heavy, like she's carrying someone else's secret without knowing it. When she steps into the executive hallway, she sees why. James Darden is standing at the far end, talking to his assistant, his voice calm but his expression unreadable. For a split second, his eyes find hers. It's not a coincidence this time. There's something deliberate, something almost protective, in the way he looks at her. Eve quickly turns away, pretending to fix her cart. Her heart beats faster. She's never been in this corridor before. Janitors aren't supposed to. But before she can leave, James's assistant calls out, "You there, could you clean the conference room?" Eve hesitates. That room is usually off-limits unless someone important approves it. She nods anyway and pushes her cart inside. The room smells like coffee and cold air. Files are scattered across the long glass table, half covered by a black leather folder stamped with confidential, Darden Holdings. She doesn't mean to look, but one sheet slips free, landing by her foot. She bends down to pick it up, and freezes. Her name is printed at the top. Subject: Carter, Eve, Employment Review/Personal Connection. Her hands tremble. Before she can read further, the door opens. James walks in. He doesn't look angry. He looks tired, almost exposed. "You weren't supposed to see that," he says quietly. Eve backs up, clutching the paper. "What is this? Why is my name in your files?" James sighs, closing the door behind him. "Because I know you, Eve. Or at least, I used to." She stares at him. "Used to? I've never met you before." He nods slowly, almost like he expected her to say that. "It was a long time ago. Before all this." He gestures around the room, the empire he built, the tower that bears his name. "You worked for someone I once cared about. Someone who saved my life." Eve feels the air leave her lungs. "My mother," she whispers. You knew my mother. James nods. Ruth Carter. She was my nurse after the accident. I promised I'd find a way to repay her someday. Eve's voice shakes. She died 10 years ago. I know, James says. His tone softens. I didn't come back to make things worse for you. I came because I failed her. Because she told me, if I ever got the chance, I should look after her daughter. Silence. The rain outside starts again, soft at first, then steady. Eve lowers the paper, her eyes wet. You've been following me? Not following, James says. Watching. Making sure you were safe. She takes a step closer, anger and confusion colliding. You could have said something. I tried. Every time I came close, I saw you living your life, working hard, never asking for anything. You reminded me of her. I didn't want to disrupt that. Eve doesn't know what to say. All this time, she thought she was invisible, just another janitor cleaning floors no one noticed. But someone had noticed. Before she can respond, the intercom crackles. A cold, corporate voice echoes through the hall. Security to the executive level. Mr. Darden, your presence is required immediately. James stiffens. Stay here, he tells her. Don't move until I come back. He leaves quickly, shutting the door behind him. Eve stands alone, her reflection caught in the glass table. She looks down at the folder again. Another page peeks out, this one stamped Internal Investigation. Her eyes widen as she reads the first line. Allegations of fraud involving senior management. Potential whistleblower, E. Carter. Her own name. Again. She drops the paper, heart pounding. Who would put that there? And why does it look like someone wants to set her up? Outside, footsteps approach fast. Heavy. Urgent. Eve turns toward the door, fear rising in her chest. Was James trying to protect her? Or is he the reason she's in danger now? The call comes just after 5. Eve is mopping the lower lobby when her phone buzzes with a number she doesn't know. She almost ignores it until she hears the voice on the other end. Ma'am, your son's been detained downtown. You need to come immediately. The mop slips from her hand. What? Detained for what? Suspected shoplifting, the officer says. We need a parent or guardian present. Her heart drops. Malik. She grabs her coat and bolts through the rain, her shoes slapping against the pavement. The city lights blur through her tears as she runs for the bus, clutching her phone like it might explain any of this. Malik isn't perfect. He's been struggling since they moved into the cheaper part of town, but stealing? That's not him. When she reaches the precinct, she sees her son sitting behind the glass divider, eyes red, arms crossed like he's trying to hold himself together. The officer explains that they caught him near a store where another boy had stolen sneakers. Wrong place, wrong time. Eve presses her hand to the glass. Baby, it's okay. I'm here. Malik just shakes his head. They wouldn't listen, Mom. Nobody listens. Before she can answer, another officer walks in. Carter, you're free to go. What? Why? Eve asks. Case closed. Someone higher up cleared it. Said the charges were dropped. Eve blinks in confusion. Who? The officer shrugs. Didn't say. Just told us to let him go. She doesn't realize until later, when she's signing Malik's release papers, that the officer called the person, sir. Back at their apartment, Malik locks himself in his room. Eve sits on the couch, replaying the moment in her head. Who could have done that? Who even could have that kind of power? Then it hits her, James. The man who'd been watching over her. The one who always seemed to know more than he should. Anger floods in where gratitude should be. She throws her coat back on and heads for the Darden Tower parking lot. It's late when she gets there, the lot half-lit, rain pooling in shallow puddles. The same black SUV sits near the corner, engine off but lights still glowing faintly. James steps out before she even reaches him, as if he knew she'd come. "Eve," he starts, voice calm. "Don't." She stops a few feet away, soaked, furious. "You did it, didn't you? You had Malik released." James hesitates. He didn't deserve to be there. Her voice rises. "You think because you're rich, you get to fix me? To fix my life? You can't just throw money at my problems and call it kindness." "I wasn't saving you," James says quietly. "I was saving what little good I still believe in." That stops her for a moment. Rain slides down her face, but her eyes don't soften. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he says. "I know what your mother believed in. I know what she saw in people, even when they gave up on themselves. And I see that in you." Eve shakes her head. "You've been living in that glass tower too long. You don't know what real life costs." "I know regret," James says. "And I know what it's like to lose the only person who ever made you want to be better." The words hang between them, heavy and unfixable. Eve steps back, her breath unsteady. "You can't keep trying to make up for your past with my life." "I'm not," he says. "But I don't know how to stop trying." For a moment, neither of them moves. The rain fills the silence. Then Eve turns away. "Don't come near me again, James." He doesn't follow. He just stands there, watching her walk into the storm until her figure disappears beyond the flickering streetlight. That night, for the first time in weeks, James doesn't wait in the parking lot. He drives past the tower, past the streets he's memorized, and doesn't look back. And somewhere across the city, Eve lies awake staring at the ceiling, wondering why the one man she wanted gone is the only one who ever truly saw her. Both are left with the same thought. What if connection isn't about saving someone, but about being seen when you no longer believe you exist? Weeks drift by like quiet echoes. The nights at the Darden Tower feel different now, emptier. Eve keeps her head down, finishing each shift without a word. She doesn't linger in the lot anymore. She doesn't look up toward the glass tower where James once watched from above. She's already decided. Whatever existed between them ended the night she walked away in the rain. Then one afternoon, an envelope lands in her locker. It's stamped with the company seal, transfer notice. Her cleaning contract is being reassigned to another building in Evanston, effective immediately. No explanation, no appeal, just new hours, new routes, new keys. She reads the letter twice, but the words don't change. It isn't a promotion. It's a quiet removal. Someone up top decided she didn't belong here anymore. Her co-workers glance at her but say nothing. For months, they whispered behind her back, curious about why the CEO spent time in the parking lot. Now, they look at her like she's leaving a funeral. The silence hurts more than their gossip ever did. That final night, Eve cleans the top floor one last time. She empties trash cans, wipes down glass doors, and pauses by the corner office, his office. The blinds are half open. The room is empty. On the desk, the lamp still glows faintly. She hesitates, then turns it off. When she pushes her cart into the elevator, she doesn't look back. Outside, the parking lot feels larger without him there. The hum of distant traffic fills the air. She leaves her badge in the cart and walks away. Later that night, James received the notice by email. A staff reshuffle. Maintenance rotation. It's buried in a list of facility changes, something he should have seen days earlier. He leaves his meeting mid-sentence, driving back through the rain to the lot. The windshield wipers beat in sync with his pulse. When he arrives, the space is empty except for a single cleaning cart left by the gate. On the seat, he finds her ID badge, edges cracked, name faded. He runs his thumb across the worn plastic like it might still hold warmth. The lot feels wrong without her. The same rain. The same hour. But no Eve. He stands there for a long time, water pooling around his shoes, thinking about how easily people disappear when no one's looking. A guard passing by pauses. "You all right, Mr. Darden?" James nods once. "Just forgot something." He doesn't explain what. When he finally gets back in his car, the seat beside him feels too empty. The city lights blur outside the window. Somewhere, a clock strikes 8:15, the same time he used to wait, the same time she'd pass by. He whispers to no one, "I should have told her." But he didn't. And now, all that's left is an empty parking lot and a badge that no longer opens any doors. The rain keeps falling. And for the first time, James realizes that maybe this isn't punishment, it's a consequence. Some stories don't end with words or closure. Some end when one person finally looks up, and the other is already gone. And as the thunder fades over the city, one question lingers. When silence becomes the only thing left between two people, is it too late to say what should have been said? Days turn into weeks, and the building feels different now. Quieter, though not because of the noise. It's the kind of quiet that stays in the corners of your chest. James still arrives early and leaves late, but something in his routine has shifted. He no longer drives straight to his office and shuts the world out. Instead, he walks, floor by floor, past cubicles, reception desks, and break rooms. He nods to janitors, greets security guards by name, and thanks the night staff for their work. It startles them at first. No one's used to seeing the CEO outside his glass tower, especially not carrying a coffee tray or asking how their night is going. He doesn't tell them why. But each time he sees a worn uniform, a tired face, or a quiet smile, he feels something move in him, something that almost feels like forgiveness. He doesn't say her name, not even to himself. Yet in every tired pair of eyes, he looks for Eve. Sometimes he catches himself pausing in the parking lot, glancing toward the far corner where she used to wait for the bus. The spot stays empty, but he still checks. Just once. Just in case. In meetings, his tone softens. He asks about employee wellness. He proposes paid time off for janitorial staff during holidays. The boardroom goes silent when he mentions it. This isn't the kind of policy CEOs bring up. But he insists. Small things, he says, can stop people from breaking. Nobody argues. Across town, life for Eve is finally beginning to settle. The Hyde Park Library smells like paper and dust, and she loves it. The quiet feels earned, not empty. Her days are structured now. Morning coffee, shelves to organize, and regulars to greet. She checks in books, scans returns, and helps little kids find picture books after school. It's steady work, honest work. Malik's grades are climbing. He's even joined a local mentorship program. The school counselor says he's got potential. Eve smiles when she hears it, though she never tells him how much it means. At night, when she locks the library doors, she sometimes pauses at the window and looks toward the skyline in the distance. The Willis Tower is just a faint outline, glinting against the dusk. She thinks about him more often than she admits. About the way he listened, the strange calm around him, the sadness he tried to hide behind politeness. There's a part of her that misses those quiet exchanges, the ones where no one was trying to impress anyone. Just two people in different worlds, sharing the same silence. One afternoon, she finds herself walking past a newspaper stand. A headline catches her eye. Tech CEO launches Employee Care Initiative. There's a small photo, James Darden shaking hands with a maintenance worker. She stares for a moment, unsure whether to smile or look away. She finally folds the paper shut and walks on. At work, she starts keeping a small notebook in her locker. On the first page, she writes one line. Some people come into your life just to remind you you're still visible. That night, James sits in his office long after everyone leaves. He watches the city through the glass, hundreds of lights flickering like stars that never rest. He's learned to live without waiting for her to appear in the lot. But he still feels her presence in the way he pays attention now to everyone he used to overlook. He begins sponsoring scholarships quietly, funding evening classes for janitorial staff, donating anonymously to community centers near Bronzeville. He never puts his name on anything. That's not the point. Some nights, his driver finds him sitting in the lot again. "You waiting for someone, sir?" he asks gently. James shakes his head. "No. Just remembering." The driver nods, not pressing further. Some stories don't need an audience. They just need to matter to the person living them. Weeks later, Eve walks home from the library, carrying a stack of books Malik borrowed. The street lights flicker. The air smells like rain. She glances up at the city skyline again and wonders, did he ever think of her after that night? Or did their paths cross only so each could find what they were missing alone? Her phone buzzes. It's Malik, texting a photo of his latest report card. Straight A's. She smiles. For a moment, her chest feels warm, not because everything's perfect, but because something once broken found a way to keep moving. And yet, deep down, she can't help asking herself, when someone changes because of you, even after you're gone, does that mean you were meant to leave? The library is nearly empty, the hum of the fluorescent lights low and steady. Outside, a cold drizzle taps against the tall windows. Eve stands by the front desk, sliding the last stack of returned books into their bins. The clock above the door reads 8:12 p.m., almost closing time. She moves through the aisles slowly, checking each shelf with the same quiet focus she's developed over the months. The place feels like a sanctuary, a world that doesn't ask too much. The children's corner is still scattered with crayons and paper. The reading table holds an open novel someone forgot to check out. Eve smiles softly. Then she notices something odd. On the third aisle, near the poetry section, a single book leans crookedly between two others, Letters to My Daughter by Maya Angelou. She's shelved it a dozen times before. But tonight, a thin corner of paper juts out from the top. She frowns and pulls the book out gently. It feels heavier than usual. When she opens it, an envelope slips out and flutters to the floor. No name on the front. Just one letter, written in familiar, careful handwriting, E. Her pulse quickens. For a moment, she simply stares at it, her breath shallow. The library is so quiet that she can hear her own heartbeat. She kneels and picks it up, hesitating. The paper smells faintly of cologne, clean, understated. She recognizes it before she wants to admit it. She opens it slowly. Inside is a single folded note. Her eyes trace the words. You once told me people like us live unseen. But I see you, Eve. Always did. J. She reads it again. And again. Her hand trembles. The paper feels warm in her palm, even though the air around her is cold. She sinks into the nearest chair, trying to breathe. It's been months since she last saw him. She'd buried that chapter quietly, told herself it was just a moment, a strange crossing of lives that couldn't last. But here he was again, not in person, but in ink. She wipes a tear with the back of her hand. The words echo in her head. I see you. For years, Eve worked jobs where no one remembered her name. People passed her in hallways, handed her trash, asked for clean towels, and never looked twice. Even kindness, when it came, felt like charity. But with him, It had been different. He didn't treat her like background noise. He'd listened. Really listened. She wonders how the letter got here. Did he come himself? Did he ask someone? Was it part of one of his quiet gestures she kept hearing about on the news? Scholarships, donations, changes no one could trace back to him? She folds the note carefully and presses it to her chest. For the first time in a long while, she lets herself cry, not out of pain, but release. When the tears fade, she stands and walks to the window. The rain has stopped. The skyline glows in the distance, and among the faint lights stands the dark outline of the Willis Tower, tall, steady, unshaken. She thinks about how many nights he must have waited there, how many times she'd walked past without knowing. The idea doesn't make her sad anymore. It makes her grateful. Not all love stories begin with promises. Some begin in silence. Some never even need to be spoken aloud. She looks down at the letter again. The handwriting is firm, deliberate, but the words are soft. She whispers, almost to herself, "You saw me." The sound barely escapes her lips, but it's enough. The next morning, Eve places the envelope back where she found it, between the same pages, in the same book. She leaves a small note of her own this time. "Thank you for seeing me. I see you too." No signature. Just her handwriting, simple, careful, unadorned. She slides the book back into the shelf, its spine perfectly aligned, and exhales deeply. As she walks out of the library, the sunrise spills gold across the floor. Malik waits outside with his backpack, smiling, ready for another day. She locks the door and joins him. Behind her, the shelves stand silent. Somewhere between the words of Maya Angelou, two small notes rest together, one written by a man who finally learned to look, and one by a woman who finally believed she was worth being seen. Eve takes her nephew's hand as they cross the street. She doesn't turn back, but she knows what's waiting there isn't a goodbye. It's a memory, gently folded, left behind so neither has to carry the weight alone anymore. And as she walks toward the morning light, one thought lingers. If love can exist without ever being returned, without ever being spoken, does that make it weaker, or something far stronger? The city hums with summer light. Chicago feels softer these days, the way it does when hope has found its way back into people's steps. It's the kind of morning that feels like an ending and a beginning all at once. Eve stands in the courtyard of Southside Community Hall, surrounded by laughter, hugs, and 100 bright futures. Balloons flutter, music plays faintly from a speaker, and camera flashes capture moments that once felt impossible. At the center of it all, Malik adjusts his tie, nervous, proud, still a little in disbelief. The scholarship letter from Howard University sits neatly folded in his pocket. A full ride. 4 years. His name is printed in bold letters at the top. Eve watches him from a distance, her heart swelling with something she can't name. Pride, yes. Relief, absolutely. But mostly gratitude, for every night spent worrying, every prayer whispered in the dark, every stranger who crossed her path and changed its direction without asking for anything in return. She catches Malik's eye. He grins, the same boyish grin he used to flash when she told him bedtime stories in their tiny apartment. He waves her over. "Aunt Eve, they want a photo. Come on." She laughs softly, brushing a tear before it falls. She joins him, and as the photographer counts down, she places her hand on his shoulder, not to hold him back, but to steady herself. The flash captures more than a moment. It captures proof that survival can bloom into joy. Later, when the crowd disperses, Eve finds herself alone by the community garden behind the hall. The flowers sway gently in the breeze, wild, unpolished, beautiful. She exhales, slow and deep. For the first time in years, her shoulders don't carry weight. The silence around her isn't lonely anymore. It's peaceful. Across town, another ceremony is ending. In a modest event space downtown, the annual Unsung Hands Awards have just concluded, an evening recognizing janitors, drivers, cafeteria workers, and hospital aides who've gone above and beyond. No journalists. No flashing cameras. Just quiet applause, heartfelt speeches, and envelopes filled with anonymous donations that will change lives. James sits near the back, clapping softly. He's no longer the man hidden behind glass towers. His suits are simpler now. His days, humbler. The grief that once hollowed him out has softened into purpose. He never told anyone where the funding came from. He didn't need to. The satisfaction came from watching others stand where they once felt invisible, the same way Eve had once stood in his office, unafraid to speak her truth. When the ceremony ends, James shakes a few hands and steps out into the evening air. The sky is brushed in orange and gold. He checks his watch. 8:15. He lingers by his car, looking across the parking lot. There's nothing there but reflections in glass, office lights flickering on, the city beginning its night. Yet something makes him pause. He smiles faintly. In the shimmer of twilight, he imagines her, maybe not here, not now, but out there somewhere, living free of the past, unburdened, whole. He doesn't reach for his phone. He doesn't need to. Some connections don't depend on presence. They live quietly, like roots under the soil, unseen, but deeply alive. He slides into the car and lets the engine hum to life. As the city moves around him, he glances once more toward the skyline. The Willis Tower rises tall against the fading light. He whispers something, though no one hears. A thank you, perhaps. Or maybe just a silent prayer for peace, hers and his. Back in Hyde Park, Eve sits by her window that night, the same note still tucked safely in her journal. She opens it sometimes, not to mourn what never was, but to honor what it meant. You once told me people like us live unseen. But I see you, Eve. Always did. She smiles softly and closes the journal. Malik's laughter echoes from the next room. The sound fills the space between what was lost and what remains. She leans back, eyes tracing the stars above the city. Sometimes, love never begins with words. Sometimes, it lives in silence, in the moment someone waits just to see you walk safely into the night. The camera fades on her face, calm, illuminated by the soft glow of the moonlight. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll yet. Subscribe for more powerful, true-to-life stories that move and inspire. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from, and come back tomorrow for another unforgettable story.